Hello, and thank you for joining today's special webinar where you will hear from a panel of experts who will share what you need to know to prepare for a hurricane and protect your home and health. We're glad to have you all tuned in today to hear about this timely topic. In a moment, our panelists will present some great info and answer some of your questions. My name is Dr. Sunil Kumar. I will be moderating as well as participating in today's session. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping items to cover. Firstly, this webinar is being recorded and is streaming live on Facebook. Today's session is meant to be interactive. That means we want to hear from you. To do this, put your questions in the chat box for those tuning via Zoom and in the comment section for those tuning in on Facebook. Thank you to those who have already sent in questions. Our panelists will be answering them shortly. Finally, if we are unable to answer those questions or your questions, we will send out a follow-up email with answers. Facebook listeners, check the comments for instructions on how to send us your email to be included. And lastly, we would like to thank Florida Power and Light Company for powering today's webinar, which is being hosted by the American Lung Association. Now, I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists. First panelist is Ben Wesley. Ben is an external affairs manager for Florida Power and Light Company, the largest rate-regulated electric utility company in Florida. In that role, Ben handles local government and community relations for the company. He joined FPL in 2003. Ben serves in a number of leadership roles in Broward community organizations. He has lived in South Florida for 36 years and in Broward County for the last 24 years. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you for having us.
Our second panelist is Jamie Hernandez. Jamie is the Emergency and Governmental Affairs Manager for the City of Hollywood, a coastal community of more than 160,000 residents. He's a Florida professional emergency manager and has served as Hollywood's emergency manager since 2013. As Hollywood's emergency manager, he has led the city through 4 successful hurricanes, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the 2023 flood, and several other significant events. He developed Hollywood's first citywide severe weather and hurricane plan, family assistance center plan, and pandemic transitional recovery plan. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you for having me, Doctor. Appreciate it.
And a little about me. I'm, again, Dr. Sunil Kumar. I'm a pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine specialist. I'm in practice here in Broward County for the last 20 plus years. As part of the leadership team at Broward Health, I led multiple COVID response teams during the years of our pandemic, and also led the healthcare team through multiple hurricanes and floods. I'm a local leadership Broward member for the American Lung Association in South Florida. So before we hop into our panel discussion, we have a quick video from FPL that illustrates a commitment to supporting our local communities when severe weather strikes. Without further delay, let's play that video.
Here in Florida, every name tells a story. Just saying Ian, Nicole, or Wilma brings about strong memories. But then there's Adam and Gary. Together, their teams helped rescue over 3,500 people. And there's Shane, Clyde, and Robert. Together, they have more than 60 years of storm experience. They stand with an FPL team of thousands ready to respond. So as the next storm approaches, just know our job isn't finished until everyone's lights are back on.
Amazing. Again, thank you all for joining, and we're going to start our panel discussion. Welcome to panel members again. And we're going to have the panel discussion in 3 different sections. So how to prepare before the storm, what do we do during the storm, and what precautions we need to take after the storm. So let's start with the first session, that's preparing for the storm. So Jamie, how do you get your home ready for the hurricane season, and how does the city plan for a storm?
So I'm going to start with the how to prepare the home question. So your home obviously is your primary responsibility, because that's obviously where your family is, and you want to dedicate as many resources as you have to at your disposal to that, to mitigating that and preparing it for a hurricane. So obviously you begin with your own sustenance, your self-preservation. At the City of Hollywood website, we have a very comprehensive list of things that people, supplies that people can secure before the storm. That's very important. It's important also that people take these measures well ahead of any threat of a hurricane, not wait till a few days before the storm hits. So therefore, now being what we call blue sky day in emergency management circles would be the time to prepare for that. This would be your water, your non-perishable food items, medications, the like. As far as the home itself, it's important. Again, this is the time to prepare and to secure the mitigation materials that you need, whether it's for wind or water, impacts. Those could be shutters, those could be sandbags, generator, that sort of thing. So you hardening your roof. Those are the things that people should be doing now. And I see my partner there, Ben Wesley. FPM has a lot of programs that people can take advantage of to prepare their home for hurricane season. So, and as far as the city and what the city's doing, we do this even though hurricane season runs from June through November. We're doing this year round. Whether it's through planning or exercising or training. We're constantly preparing our staff and with our partners to be prepared for hurricane impacts. Whether it's water impacts through storm surge, flooding, wind impacts, and securing the resources needed to be able to properly respond to these types of calls for service. That's what we're doing year round.
Okay. Thank you for that. Ben, how does America's largest electric utility company prepare for a storm? If you could just outline those, please.
Sure, thank you. So our preparation starts with making sure that our infrastructure is as robust as possible to survive a hurricane. And for the last 20 years, we've been doing everything we can to harden that infrastructure, making sure that the transmission lines are all steel, making sure that the feeders, which we call the hardening program on the feeders, concrete poles, replacing the wooden poles. We're taking more and more residential neighborhoods, which on the lines we call the laterals, underground. And we see hardening programs and undergrounding programs going on all around Broward County. I'm sure you've seen it as you've been driving down major thoroughfares where we are replacing the old wooden poles with concrete poles. In addition to that, we train year round. Everyone in our company has a storm role. And we are making sure that everyone knows their role. Everyone is able to jump into action as soon as the storm is approaching. We have an annual storm drill that the entire company participates in. We do that prior to hurricane season. And again, just to practice everyone's role and determine, what improvements that we can make every year as we go through this process. You're on mute, Doctor.
Being in Florida, you guys are the pro here, right? So Ben, also, can you comment on tree trimming? Because we hear this a lot. Should residents try to trim their trees during that preparedness, or what do you suggest? What do you recommend?
Well, trees need to be trimmed year round, and we recommend that everyone have licensed professionals do that if those trees are near the power lines. But as a storm approaches, they absolutely should not go out and in a panic start trying to trim trees. For one thing, that's the way a lot of people get injured. More people get injured before a storm and after a storm than during a storm, and it's because of the preparations or the repairs, and it's being done in a not a thoughtful way, right? So, and the other piece of trying to trim trees right before a storm is you're putting debris on the ground that then can be a hazard. So we do not recommend it.
Very good point. So, these points we are talking about protecting your home and physical protection. Let's also talk about some precautions as far as your health. So I'm just going to briefly touch on that. You have to have a hurricane kit with all your supplies and all those things. Along with that, you also need to check your medical list. So most important thing, if you don't have a primary care physician, establish one, and this is the right time to do it. Develop and communicate your emergency plan. Keep something in writing and keep your phone numbers of your support network, your healthcare providers, your pharmacy, your home health agency, especially if you have durable medical equipment company. Keep that number ready so you can call them in case you need them for an emergency. Consider purchasing those products early if you think you would need that. You can think about your portable air cleaners. That might come in handy if you have flooding and your home is destroyed in that flood. Think about your medications. It's not just thinking about it. Make a list of your medicine, including your dose of those medicines. And please, don't forget your inhalers. They're also medications, and you will definitely need those things if you're in the middle of a storm and you have lung disease. And at least have 2 weeks supply of your medications. And create a plan. If you have COPD, have a COPD action plan. If you have asthma, just have an asthma action plan. You can get help from American Lung Association, and we'll go over some of those contact information later on. So Jamie, another question I have is, what should go into your emergency preparedness tool or your hurricane kit?
Yeah, doctor, the emergency kit should have everything from your medical supplies, tools, we mosquito repellent, believe it or not, just because since we live here in Florida and it gets very, very warm or hot during the summer, during hurricane season, and then you start dealing with potential power outages after the storm. Obviously, FP&L's, got a lot of crews and partner agencies in the area trying to restore power as quickly as possible, but it is a disaster and that takes time. So people need to prepare themselves accordingly, and that's, again, the mosquito repellent, sunscreen, medications. I talked earlier about water, gallon of water per person per day, non-perishable food items. Believe it or not, something as simple as a manual can opener, because again, we don't have any power, and people, a lot of times we'll get phone calls here at city government, just from people who say, hey, I have all this non-perishable food and I don't have any power. What do? So it's happened in the past, most recently during Hurricane Irma in 2017. So these are the things that the people should be taking into account when they're preparing for a storm and preparing their emergency kit. Again, I want to direct people to our website. It's, even though it's Hollywood specific, the tips can be used just by anybody in Florida, and that's www.hollywoodfl.org/hurricane. And on there, you'll see a comprehensive amount of information on what to do to prepare for a storm.
Very interesting. Ben, from a power perspective, do you want to add anything more to the storm kit or the preparations?
So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, batteries, very important, making sure everything is charged. And, if people can afford it, I really think that they should think about backup generation. You know, the best way to do it, again, if you can afford it, is whole house generation, where with an automatic throwover switch, so that as soon as the power goes out, a few seconds later, the throwover switch kicks in, the generator comes on, and you've got power again. And depending on your situation, if you're on a residential gas line, you know, as long as the gas company can put gas in those lines, you're going to have power. And if you're not on those lines, you can have a buried propane tank that has 500 gallons worth of fuel that can go
Wow.
like a week. I've got one of those. I've been through a couple of storms now with that, and it's not a cheap solution, but you know, especially if you have medical conditions that make it really difficult to go through the heat and loss of power during a storm, I think it's something really to consider.
Yeah, that's very true. Good point. So we are prepared. We have enough points about preparation. Let's also start talking about what do we do during the storm. You know, there are some tips and best practices. So Jamie, how can you stay safe in your city as a storm hits your town? If you can give us some tips on that.
So that's an excellent question, because I would say there's probably two different answers at least to that question. One
Okay.
is, it depends on where you live. If you live in an evacuation zone in Hollywood, it's all areas east of Federal Highway, and an evacuation order is issued, you know, before the storm hits. We encourage, if not urge, people to heed those warnings and those orders, and to leave the area immediately. You only need to go as far west as you have to get out of harm's way, and that's where the pre-storm planning comes into play, because you don't want to just pick up and drive without knowing where you're going to go. You want to be informed, have a plan, obviously have your emergency supplies with you, your emergency kit, and evacuate to a safer area until the storm passes.
Okay.
Those who don't live in an evacuation zone and feel safe in their homes, they need a shelter in place. You know, they need to not go outdoors. A lot of people get curious as the storm is impacting the area, and they'll walk outside, and you'll see videos of people, you know, doing some rather irresponsible things during the middle of a hurricane, and that's how people get hurt. You know, and it's you know, it's a troubling situation, but people need to stay indoors. And again, but I want to go back to your previous question about how do you prepare for one. How you prepare for a hurricane always determines whether or not you make it through the storm. It's all about the preparedness and what you do ahead of time that dictates what you do during the storm. And
Okay.
once those sustained winds hit 45 miles per hour, first responders, at least here in Hollywood, they're not going to go out. You can call 911 and you're on your own. You know, so people need to understand that. That's where the personal responsibility comes in again. So
Correct. Thank you. And Ben, you want to add anything from an energy power standpoint during the storm? Any tips?
Well, during the storm, I mean, it's so important, you know, to stay inside, you know, yeah, and in the aftermath of a storm, the most important thing is to treat every power line as if it's energized, whether it's on the ground or in the air. Do not go near power lines, because they all could be live. The other thing is, you know, there's going to be standing water in a lot of instances. You do not want to be in standing water. Do not step in standing water. If that water is also touching a power line, you can be electrocuted. So that's one of them. And we lose folks. You know, over the years, there's been a lot of folks that have been affected by those kinds of conditions. So important to put your safety first.
All right. But FPL also has an app that they can download, and they can get some of this information and also take actions, correct?
Absolutely. I recommend that everyone download our free app. You can get a lot of information about storms before and after. You can get, once we are able to give estimated times of restoration, we can have some estimates. You can get estimates of when you may be able to be restored. We also have a very robust website that I recommend everybody, as soon as this seminar is over, go to fpl.com//storm. We've got a ton of great information there. And if you can't do it today, do it sometime before the storm hits. I think you'll be very well rewarded.
Very, very important information. Thank you. And from a medical standpoint, during the storm, just make sure you have your medical kit nearby, have your oxygen, durable medical equipment, everything close to you. And also, it's very important that you be with someone you trust who understands your medical condition and medical needs. If you don't have that help, you should get to an emergency shelter and make sure the shelter is vetted prior to the storm. That way you can get all those information printed, including directions, and keep that. So let's just quickly talk about after the storm. There are a lot of health conditions that people are not aware of what happens after the storm, right? Hurricane usually accompanied by flooding. There are actually more people die in flooding, on an average about 100 people every year in the United States, just from flooding and related health risks. So, you can get skin infections, you can get gastrointestinal infections, but more than all those, there's a lot of bacteria, mold, and toxic substances you come across causing a lot of respiratory illnesses. So if you have, let's just say, COPD or asthma, these are important things to be careful about. And tornadoes can cause a lot of major air pollution. So you got to be careful with all those things. Like the panelists mentioned before, if you can stay indoors till the debris is cleared and the power is restored. And we talk about physical preparation, we talk about physical health, but one very important thing I don't want to ignore is mental health. During and after the storm, there's a lot of depression, PTSD symptoms, and especially these effects can last longer. And don't forget about our first responders either, police and fire rescue. There's a lot of PTSD in that group. So from a city standpoint, I think we need to keep an eye on our first responders as well. So for Ben, from an FPL standpoint, can you comment on how you restore power after a hurricane? What steps you take?
Yes. I think the most important thing everyone should understand about how the electric grid works and how we restore power is the analogy that electricity is like a river. And so that electricity is flowing down to you through a series of steps. That river starts at the power generation plants, where we're literally making the electricity. It then goes into the transmission lines that go, the really large lines that go across country, feeding the substations that are local to the area. And then the substations, that power is stepped down to commercial and residential levels, and it's pushed out through our feeder lines and then into the lateral lines. And the laterals are where, feeders and laterals are where the power is getting to you, the commercial and the residential customers. And the key point here is everything has to be working upstream of you in order for you to be restored. So first we have to make sure the power plants are running, the transmission lines are up and running, the substations are up and running, and then we're able to work on the feeders and the laterals. So the takeaway from that is we can't just pinpoint a particular customer and go there and restore it. Everything has to be restored upstream to make that happen.
All right. Well, there's a lot of community partnership happens clearly. And can both Ben and Jamie chime in? And how does FPL partner with local cities, and how do you guys work together? I mean, you must have worked together for many years, and we always have these issues here in our cities.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, Ben has been a partner for many years, and the city works hand in hand with FP&L through our partners at Broward County Emergency Management. And when we have a hurricane, and FP&L is obviously the most popular, arguably the most popular entity in the Broward EOC during the mobilization. So, but we're grateful for their partnership, and again, Ben and I participate in quite a few of these together. So, and I'm sure there'll be more. So it's always an evolving partnership.
Yeah, Jamie and I have worked together for a long time on these kinds of issues, and I think it's helpful for the public to understand kind of how the emergency response system works in the state of Florida. I mean, we have the emergency management at the state level. We have emergency management at the local levels, where the counties and the cities have facilities, right? And in Broward County, the Broward County Emergency Operations Center, which is located in Plantation, is where all of the cities, all the government entities, a lot of the nonprofits, certainly FPL, the phone company, we all come together in one building and are part of a process where we coordinate restoration with each other.
Interesting. So I think that kind of concludes our panel discussion. Let's go ahead and take some questions from the audience. So I'm going to read out the first question. This is for Jamie. We talk about preparing our homes, but what about preparing our backyard? What does the city recommend in terms of preparing pools and patios, especially regarding furniture near a pool?
So, regard to pools, as a pool owner myself, I can tell you that you hear a lot about people throwing furniture in their pools pre-storm and lowering water levels and things like that. The lower the water level is understandable, because obviously, especially if you have a slow moving storm, it's going to potentially dump a lot of rain, large volumes of rain over your area, that you run the risk of the pool overflowing and causing flooding around the property. With regard to the furniture and people throwing furniture in their pools, technically you could do that, but you run the risk of damaging the furniture, and you're gonna have to go after the storm and buy some new furniture if it doesn't make it through the storm. So your best bet is to try to bring it in indoors and ride out the storm if possible. If not, try taking it to a friend's or associate's house and try protecting your furniture that way. The other thing to remember is try to keep the property, backyard and the front yard and the side of the property clear of debris and loose debris. The wind will pick it up. It could be used as projectiles. It could cause damage to not only your home but neighboring structures as well. So you got to the best of your ability, keep your property clean and clear of potential debris and flying objects.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Another question came, I think Ben already answered. This is regarding how FPL upgrades its power company grids and all those things, and how they plan for after hurricane. I think you kind of touched on that. So I'm going to move on to the next question. Is regarding health concerns. What common respiratory issues people face? I think I also touched on that. Especially if you have asthma, COPD, have an action plan and make sure you have your medications with you. If you need durable medical equipment, you should register for special needs shelter, and you can get all that information from American Lung Association website. And that information is at I think American Lung Association website, and also the state and the city has websites. You can check that. Again, ALA website is www.lung.org. That's a website you can check. I think that's pretty much all the questions I have so far. I'm sure there are a lot of other questions on the chat box, and make sure you post your emails and we will be sending you those answers very soon. Thank you all for joining.